What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. And this episode is about one of the greatest sports in North America, one of the greatest sports seasons this year. That's right, it's college basketball, everybody's favorite postseason, with lots of great moments on the way to that postseason. It's here, Mega Monday. All the men's teams, all the women's teams, for the most part, pretty much everybody around the country is getting started Monday, November 3rd. So let's go through and do a preview, much like I did last season. And I'm going to start with one of the most important things in college basketball, which is non-conference games. And I added more than I did last year. I didn't give you a lot last year. These are what, in my opinion, are the most interesting, the best, can't miss matchups for non-conference games between from November. There's even one from February in there. Not too often you see a February non-conference game, but from November to December, the first 6 weeks of the season, where it's so important to help fill out your tournament resume. And there's so many games. I'll go ahead and give you a date of a couple Saturdays you should be tuned into the TV pretty much every Saturday in December, but December 2nd and December 3rd, that is ACC SEC Challenge time. A lot of great games going on for that one. It's also Big Ten Big East Challenge time. So December 2nd, December 3rd, lots of great games. Highly recommend. That should be a Tuesday, Wednesday. December 6th, there is 4 games, and you can just watch them. 12, 12, 8, 10. December 13th has 4 games as well. December 20th has 4 games. And then November, it feels like there's one almost every day of of the week. There's almost 2 straight weeks here, week and a half, I guess, is straight, with a game that is a really good non-conference game. Some of these teams are on this list a lot. I'll kind of talk about them a little bit in a minute. I'm not going to go through all game, but for those of you who don't know, this is 36, if you don't feel like counting, 36 non-conference games. Some Arizona shows up a lot on this list. Auburn does. UConn does. Some of these are neutral site games. Like UConn. UConn is the master at this. UConn has so many tough non-conference games, right? Like Arizona, like Illinois. They have a couple others. You know what UConn's really good at? Saying it's a neutral court, which helps in the net, guys, the all-important net. But they say it's a neutral court game, but it's played in like Madison Square Garden or the TD Garden. Newsflash, if you're anywhere up there, it's UConn country. It's going to essentially be a UConn home game, but it counts as a neutral site game for them. Just wanted to throw that out there. UConn is the masters of that. And if you're wondering why, you're like, oh, why is my team not on here? I either didn't think it's good enough, to be honest, or wasn't compelling enough. Almost all of these matchups are between two teams that are ranked in the preseason. I think the team that I have on here that isn't ranked preseason, that is on here the most, is NC State, and that's because I think they are an incredibly compelling team this year. And that NC State Kansas game should be a very important December 13th game. But all of these games are almost exclusively between two teams that are preseason ranked, teams that you know are going to be good, blue bloods of the sport, really good coaches, really good players, that kind of stuff. And that's how most of these, if not all of them, made the list, if you're wondering. But yes, if you need to know when the best non-conference games are, you want to watch that all-important non-conference schedule, go here. Yes, I included games like a good example here would be I thought I included the UNC Michigan State game. Maybe I didn't. There is a couple of games here that are multi-team events, right? I did not include Feast Week, but here's my distinction. You can be during Thanksgiving week, and I still include you if you're not at a Feast Week tournament. To me, the Feast Week is, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is one of the best weeks in all of college sports. And I don't count. I mean, while Feast Week is non-conference, I don't necessarily equate the two as the same. So I kind of took out all the Feast Week stuff out of this. And then you can see there's like a November 28th game. That's normally Feast Week. The reason why that's there is because it's not part of a Feast Week tournament. It is a standalone. And that is how I arrived at these non-conference games. Again, I'm not going to say them all. I don't need to just list off 36 game time and dates. But here you go. Return here to this graphic if you want to see them. It starts November 3rd, the very first night of college basketball season. There is a excellent non-conference matchup between Arizona and Florida. The Friday of the first week, UNC hosts Kansas. And then the first Saturday of the year, St. John's versus Alabama and Michigan State versus Arkansas. So plenty of great non-conference matchups in the first week of the season. I'll give you those ones since it's early on. The rest you're going to have to go through this list and find. Best of Feast Week. I said I'd get to it. Feast Week, if you're wondering, why is a multi-team event not in here? Because in my opinion, Feast Week is only tournament, some type of tournament format schedules. Not all of the Feast Week tournaments or not all of the Feast Week multi-team events, I should say MTEs, multi-team events, are tournaments anymore. To me, Feast Week is meant for tournaments. You're supposed to play at a neutral site location and go play somewhere to see if you can win a tournament against other really good teams. And not all of them are like that anymore. So I did a top 8 again, and they're only ones that should be actual real tournaments. And the one that is far and away the best, and I think it's taking some really good teams away from going to other ones, I think it might be weakening some of the other Feast Week tournaments, but I think it's going to be the thing going forward in college basketball. The Players Era Festival in Las Vegas, where players are playing for NIL money if they can win. This is a very unique tournament. It's 18 teams. Everybody has 2 scheduled games, and then from there it kind of goes crazy to decide all the rest of the stuff. But listen to the 18 teams playing. A lot of really, really good teams. Almost every single one of these teams made the tournament last year, and even the ones that didn't, usually they're pretty good or at least close to it. So listen to this list of teams listed alphabetically and no other reason. So if you're fans of these teams, don't come at me. I listed them alphabetically. Players Era Festival in Vegas: Alabama, Auburn, Baylor, Creighton, Gonzaga, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Maryland, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, Rutgers, San Diego State, St. John's, Syracuse, Tennessee, and UNLV. That is a monster 18-team tournament with a lot of really, really good teams. A lot of teams in the same conference. So I wonder, I tried to look at the tournament format. I think that they are trying to avoid it if they can, but imagine a non-conference game between conference opponents. It's very rare, but it has happened. But like a Houston and a Kansas or an Iowa State all in the same conference. Auburn, Alabama, same conference. Shoot, Baylor's in a lot of Big 12 teams in here. Quite a few Big 10 teams in here. Quite a few SEC teams in here. Like, there's a very real probability that there is some non-conference matchups between conference opponents, but that is a whale of a tournament. I highly recommend tuning in Thanksgiving week when that one's going on. And then 2 and 3, I have the Maui Invitational and Battle for Atlantis. The only other significant tournaments with more than 4 teams playing, it feels like Maui and Battle for Atlantis for so long have been the 2 standard bearers of Feast Week tournaments, and now Players Era has overtaken them, but they should still be pretty good this year. Maui coming in at 2, the 8 teams: Arizona State, Boise State, Chaminade, the Division II school who usually host it, NC State, Seton Hall, Texas, USC, and Washington State. And when you have 8 teams, it's a lot easier to avoid having conference matchups, which it appears the Maui Invitational should do. And then Battle for Atlantis: Colorado State, St. Mary's, South Florida, Vanderbilt, VCU, Virginia Tech, Western Kentucky, and Wichita State. I personally feel like Battle for Atlantis the last 2 years has kind of started to slip on the level of play that they're bringing or on the level of teams. I still think it's a good tournament. I still think it's at a great location. But with the Players Era Festival taking a lot of the elite teams and programs away, it's going to be hard for these tournaments, especially with 8 schools, to continue to fill them in with a lot of good teams. And then the last 5 are all 14 tournaments. The Baha Mar Hoops Bahamas Championship: Memphis, Purdue, Texas Tech, and Wake Forest. Purdue and Texas Tech are both top 10 schools to start the season. Both of them have national title aspirations. Wake Forest is usually a bubble team. This could be a big tournament for them. And Memphis made the tournament last year. They are favorites to win their conference. That should be a pretty good tournament. The Rady's Children Invitational, Florida, the defending national champs, starting the season at number 3. Providence, TCU, and Wisconsin, another team starting the season ranked. TCU seems like they're always fighting to get in the tournament, and they're always around there. Providence has some good history in the Big East. I don't know if I expect much. Still think this should be an interesting tournament, but Florida could very well run through it unscathed. ESPN Events Invitational, the Magic Bracket. They have 3 different brackets going on. This one is the best one. BYU, Dayton, Georgetown, Miami. BYU, new look team, top 10 team. New look is in it's kind of a newer team that you don't always expect to be at the front, but they're a top 10 team coming into this year. A lot of great players, have some depth. Dayton looking to rebound after losing themselves last year in A10 play, but historically Dayton is a mid-major powerhouse. Georgetown, I think they could be on the rebound this season and could compete for a tournament spot. In Miami, first year under new head coach Jay Lucas. This tournament, I think, could be a little bit more interesting and scrappy than people realize, with 3 teams trying to ascend and make the tournament this year that didn't last year, and some of them being historical powerhouses. And then you have BYU, the team that should win it. The Charleston Classic. Clemson, Georgia, West Virginia, and Xavier, all Power 5 schools in basketball. Clemson has made the tournament multiple years in a row, but it's a new era. A lot of the players they have long relied on are gone. Can they rebound, or can they rebuild? Have they rebuilt successfully to be at the top of the ACC like they have been? Georgia had a decent year last year. Doesn't seem like they're going to be in that same position, but can they surprise some people? Good early season tournament to do so. West Virginia with a new coach, Xavier with a new coach. So a lot of new beginnings in the Charleston Classic between schools that, all 4 of them should have made the tournament. West Virginia didn't, but they were like the first team out. But between 4 schools looking to be good in the first year with kind of new situations with a lot of new faces. And the last, my 8th ranked tournament, the Emerald Coast Classic between DePaul, Drake, Georgia Tech, and LSU. Georgia Tech seems like they always have upset power in that ACC. They still have Stoudemire at head coach. Can they continue to build and be even better? LSU seems to be at the bottom of the SEC. LSU is very up and down in basketball. Can they get on an upswing? And then Drake, a perennial mid-major small school powerhouse, seems like they should be really good this year. And DePaul, a rebuilding Big East team in Chicago, were better last year, actually winning conference games. Can they continue to ascend? These are my best 8 tournaments of Feast Week, but I think the Players Era Festival is far and away the best. And there's also some other good games that aren't necessarily Feast Week tournaments that happen in Feast Week that I would keep an eye out for. Also, they're more of that multi-team event where all of the matchups are predetermined ahead of time, so it's not a tournament format. Watch out for some of those games as well. Non-conference schedules. I have a list of teams to be celebrated and a list of teams to be shamed. I did this last year. Some teams not putting together strong non-conference schedules. Some teams are, and I know it takes 2 teams to tango. But I feel like teams, especially the power teams, which this list is exclusively made up of, I'm not going to get mad at mid-major schools for not necessarily having an incredibly difficult non-con. I personally believe big schools don't always want to play some of those really good mid-major schools in the non-conference. And B, the major schools want to play the major schools, if I'm being honest. But, and like I said, it takes 2 teams to tango. It takes 2 teams that want to play each other. And sometimes the mid-majors get left out because of that. So without further ado, my teams to be celebrated, a lot of SEC schools on this list. Alabama and Auburn, I think, both have quite difficult non-conference schedules. They're going to test themselves early and then go into the gauntlet that has been the SEC. Arizona, the first Big 12 school on this list at 3. Arizona has a lot of primetime games against very good non-conference opponents, starting week 1 with Florida. Duke, they should never, if you're a blue blood, you should never be running from a tough non-conference schedule. You see 4, 5, and 6, Duke, UConn, Kentucky, Kansas. 4, 5, 6, and 7, Duke, UConn, Kentucky, Kansas. I would say 4 of the 5 or 6 biggest blue bloods in the nation. None of them are shying away from a difficult schedule. Multiple difficult matchups. Home, away, neutral court, doesn't matter. All 4 of the schools deserve credit. And then number 8, Arkansas, maybe not a historical powerhouse, but they have had some good years. They got John Calipari, a Hall of Fame head coach, and he knows what it means to play a tough non-conference schedule early. Arkansas is certainly doing that. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, half of my top 8 of teams to be celebrated are all SEC schools. That's only going, assuming they are somewhat successful in those games, it's only going to help the SEC come tournament time. And then Duke, the only ACC team, UConn, the only Big East team, and Arizona and Kansas, both from the Big 12. Some other teams I want to mention that are just off the list. Purdue, the preseason number 1 team. They have a couple non-conference games that are difficult, but not enough for me to put them on this list. And then Texas Tech, a preseason top 10 team with one of the best players in the country, also has a difficult non-conference schedule, and I wanted to lift those 2 teams up as well. On the flip side, teams to be shamed. Now, a lot of these teams aren't necessarily expecting to be good, but you also probably should help your conference out and at least try and play and beat somebody. Some of these schools may have maybe 1 or 2 other Power 5 games on their schedule, and that's, to me, is not acceptable. Everybody should be playing at least 4 non-feast week Power Conference games, even if it's against a similarly matched team, even if they're both bottom of their conferences. You should be playing more than that. You shouldn't just be stacking up against. You shouldn't have 8 to 10 super easy non-conference games, in my opinion. And the first 4 teams on this list, really a lot of the teams on this list, didn't do that. Boston College, Minnesota, and Penn State. These top 3 atrocious non-conference schedules. They should honestly near double-digit wins with their non-conference schedules. I know that they're not projected to finish near the top of their conference, but you got to play somebody. All of those teams with their non-conference schedule, they're only going to be able to lift up their net so much. And again, even if your net isn't strong, if it's super weak because you play a bad schedule, it can affect the other teams in your conference, which then can affect your revenue because a lot of these conferences have revenue sharing, right? And some of them have it weighted towards the teams that bring in more. I don't know. It's you want your conference to do better because then your conference makes more revenue and then you make more money. Boston College, Minnesota, Penn State should be ashamed. Georgia Tech, a little bit better. Still, I think too many games against teams that they should handle. Cal plays a lot of those. Cal has a couple of bigger games against power conference opponents. And another thing that's saving them from being higher on this list is the fact that they play some pretty good mid-majors, I think, as well. There's a lot of good mid-majors out there on the West Coast, and Cal plays quite a few of them. But Cal still overall, I think, lacking some strength. Florida State, a once proud basketball program under Leonard Hamilton, trying to rebuild. Maybe that's why the schedule's a little bit easier this year. They still play a couple of guys. Not enough for me to be happy for a team that likes to think it's at a higher level of basketball than I think it maybe has been the last couple of years. I don't know, but Florida State's schedule this year is not particularly strong, especially outside of I think 2 non-conference games. Stanford in a very similar boat as Cal. And then one team, the other blue blood. I was talking about blue bloods. UNC is my 8th team to be shamed. Yes, they have Michigan State and Kansas and Kentucky. But that's it. UNC played one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the country last year. They lost pretty much all of them despite being close, and now they're playing nobody. Now, some of it necessarily isn't their fault, right? They did get Kentucky given to them in the ACC-SEC Challenge, but they're in the CBS Sports Classic, which UCLA left, so it's Kentucky, Ohio State, St. John's, and UNC, and they got stuck with Ohio State instead of one of the 2 top 10 ranked teams. But still, if you're a blue blood, you can't run from good games. And this UNC team, while they're playing some other mid-major schools, they are non-mid-major schools, some power conference schools like Georgetown and Ohio State. I still think they're lacking in top-notch prime opponents. Duke is showing them the example. UConn, Kentucky, all of their blue blood brethren are showing them the template, and they aren't following it. UNC as a blue blood should be embarrassed with their out-of-conference schedule. And quite frankly, if they lose more than 2 of their non-conference games, they're going to be in trouble going into the conference season, and that's why you should play a tougher schedule. This wraps up non-conference. Now I'm going to look at some in the individual conferences. I'm going to do it I'm kind of powering the conferences while I'm doing it. I'm going to do it in order of which conferences I think are the best while I'm previewing them from a standings perspective. So let's get into my predicted conference standings. First team, the Big 12. I think the Big 12 will be the best basketball conference in the nation this year. They're always in the running. They've been the most consistent basketball conference the last 5 or 6 years. They're really, really good. And new additions headline this conference to me. Houston and BYU. Houston went to the national championship game last year. They still have some great players on that team. I think they have 2 or 3 guys that can threaten not just for all Big 12 honors, but all American honors. Houston should be really good. BYU, led by AJ Dybantsa, Richie Saunders. I even think Robert Wright at point guard is going to be big for them. BYU at number 2 in the Big 12. They have a great mix of young and old. They can shoot the ball well. If they can figure out a way to get enough stops, I have them up there. Texas Tech, another top 10 team preseason with BYU and Houston, and I think Texas Tech is a national title contender. They have the Big 12 Player of the Year last year. And JT Toppin also figures to be in the Naismith Player of the Year conversation late this season. They have great pieces around them. I think Texas Tech could return. They went to the Final Four, right? The year Virginia won. Texas Tech makes a lot of deep tournament runs, and I don't feel like Texas Tech gets enough love because they have been a solid basketball program for almost 10 years now. I see no reason that it will be different this season. Kansas, I think, rebounds from last year. I think losing Hunter Dickinson will help. Yes, he always had great stats, but I don't think he was ever going to lead a team, and it felt like that team never came together despite the talent it had last year. They have Darren Peterson, who with AJ Dybantsa is probably going to be the number 1 and number 2 pick, definitely both going top 3. Darren Peterson looks like a walking bucket. I think this Kansas team is put together well. I don't think you can hold Bill Self down long. I think Kansas is going to return towards the top of the Big 12 standings. Arizona, they play a really tough non-conference schedule. I think that's going to get them ready to go for conference play. I think Arizona has a really good freshman. It seems like they really, really do well in the transfer portal. They do very well with player development. Arizona has been able to stay at the top for a couple years now. I think it's no different this season. Arizona, top 5 finish in the Big 12. Iowa State would probably be top 5 in almost any other conference, but not the Big 12. It's such a tough conference. Iowa State still has a couple of those star players from last year. Hoiberg seems to have them playing very well. They're quietly a very consistent Sweet 16 team the last couple years. I don't think that's going to be any different this year. Baylor, since winning the national championship, has been up and down to me. I think they're going to even out a little bit this year. They're going to be a borderline top 25, maybe solidified top 25 school all year this year. They're going to get some big upsets. They're going to get into the tournament. Can Scott Drew finally return to the heights that he was once at Baylor? Kansas State, this is where it kind of drops off. I think this is where it kind of drops down. I think those top 7 probably are far and away the top 7 in this conference. I think Kansas State will be good, but I think they're going to be closer to the bubble than the other 7 teams are. And it kind of in this second tier, really third tier, because there's probably a tier I can draw in the top 7 too. But Kansas State, I think, is a good team. They're going to be right around the bubble. I really, really like the fact they're clearly dedicated to trying to build a good team. Looking at their financial resources that they use, I really, really like PJ Haggerty for Kansas State. I think he has a great year. Give me Kansas State to finish off the top half of the Big 12. Cincinnati needs a good year. Wes Miller at Cincinnati needs a good year because he is on the hot seat. That seat could not be any hotter after missing the tournament for 2 years in a row now. Cincinnati seems to have gotten some good transfers, but it's going to have to come together quickly. They're going to have to be good on the Big 12. They're going to be around the bubble again, I think. Can they get in? I think they're right in this second tier, that bubble tier in the Big 12, with TCU. TCU has a good head coach. That goes a long way in college basketball. They're around the tournament. They've been continuously around the tournament the last couple of years. This year being no different. It's going to be tight. I think the Big 12 can definitely get 7 in. After that, it depends on other conferences and what they did in the non-conference. TCU going to be right around that line. West Virginia rebuilding. They have their 4th coach in 4 seasons after getting left out in the dark after the season last year, kind of really during the season. West Virginia always seems to be good at basketball in some manner. Maybe they need 1 year to rebuild it. Maybe they don't. But I don't think West Virginia is ever going to bottom out and be at the bottom of this conference. I don't know if they get to the tournament, but they should still be around the top 12 of the Big 12. Oklahoma State, I think, could be much higher than this. I don't know if I'm completely sold on them yet, though. I think Oklahoma State has a pretty good roster. Again, I think they have a chance to maybe even finish in the top half of this conference, make it to the NCAA tournament. They have a couple of non-conference games they can prove themselves in. But Oklahoma State, for now, I am leaving at 12. I don't know if I quite buy it. I can see best case scenario, but I think most scenarios have them out of the big dance and kind of in the middle, late pack of the Big 12. Arizona State, Bobby Hurley on the hot seat, and I don't see a lot on this roster to get him off of it. They could miss the tournament, and Bobby Hurley could be in danger of losing his job again. UCF never really felt like a top-tier contender to me in the Big 12. I still don't think they're quite there yet. Another coach that maybe gets fired with another bad finish, especially in conference. And then Utah and Colorado, both of these teams I think bottom 2, maybe even bottom 3 are far and away the worst schools in the conference. Utah and Colorado trying to build something. I don't know if it's a rebuild or if you're just trying to build something at those schools. Utah and Colorado, I have struggling this year, especially in such a great conference. SEC put a lot of 1 seeds in the tournament, a lot of high seeds in the tournament. Florida won the national championship last year for the SEC. I still have them dropping a little bit in being the 2nd best conference. It's going to be a tight race between them and the Big 12, in my opinion, for best conference in America. And I think Florida and Kentucky are going to be in a tight 2-way race to win the SEC. I wouldn't be shocked to see either team doing it. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to Florida because they just won the national title and just had a fantastic season. We'll see if they drop off a little bit. They still have some pretty darn good players on that team. But I think Florida and Kentucky have an incredibly tight late race trying to win this one. Kentucky and Florida both have first-team All-American hopes. Both have potential Naismith hopes. For Florida, you have Alex Condon. For Kentucky, you have Oweh. And, man, that's going to be an incredible battle, potentially for SEC Player of the Year between those guys as well. Then you get to the second tier of the SEC. That's pretty big. I would say the next 5 schools, maybe even 8 schools. Starting with Alabama at 3, I think Nate Oates is a good head coach. He's very fiery. He's very passionate. I don't think he's ever going to let his team, at least while he's at Alabama, drop out of the top 25, kind of drop out of a higher tier of play. I know Alabama lost a lot, but I think Phylon is going to be huge for them. I think Phylon can lead this team to a top 4 or 5 seed in the tournament, along with Nate Oates at the helm. Arkansas, I think, Arkansas, great head coach. They have talent everywhere. Don't be surprised at all if Arkansas finds a way to be competitive in this conference late. And by competitive, I mean win it late. I think Calipari is really going to have it going. I feel like he's been at Arkansas now. He knows what to expect. He's getting in players. I expect Arkansas to be a little bit more consistent and maybe start the year faster this year. Tennessee lost a lot of important pieces, but they got a top 5 recruit, potential top 5 pick. In the roster, Rick Barnes has been very good in his time at Tennessee. I don't see Tennessee falling off a cliff anytime soon. Maybe they're not as dominant, and really for Tennessee, I'm worried about their start. I think by the end of the season, they're going to be a very formidable team. It's going to come down to how they start with a lot of new pieces. Tennessee, I have at 5th. Ole Miss has a good coach with Chris Beard, made a Sweet 16 last year. seem to be a good program now, kind of up and down. A lot of new pieces. I think they figure it out eventually, but I don't know if I'm quite sold on them yet. Auburn, one of the best teams in the nation last year, and then lost a lot of their production, lost a lot of their star players, most notably, of course, Janai Broome. And now they don't have their coach in Bruce Pearl. It's handed off to his son. Who knows what that's going to look like? A lot of uncertainty. I can't have them too high in a good conference with that much uncertainty. So I'm going to have Auburn at 7. Mississippi State at 8. They've made the tournament 2 years in a row. They've been good. They've been consistent. They've been a hard team, or they make every night difficult for you. I love Josh Hubbard. I think he's one of the best players in this conference, and I still don't think nationally he's talked about enough. I think Mississippi State gets to the top half of this conference and potentially more. Texas A&M, with their head coach leaving, also have a decent amount of their production leaving. I think they could have competed for the top 5 if they had coach and players, but without that, I have them in 9, not bottoming out, still being okay, but not great. They still have some good pieces there. Missouri trying to continue to build on a good year last year for them, finishing with the 7 seed, making the NCAA tournament. I think they are a top 10 team in the SEC, borderline top 10 team in the SEC, but the SEC, very possible they can get 10 schools in. I don't know if I see it from Missouri this year. I think they're going to be right on that bubble with a lot of other teams. Missouri, I think, is probably similar to what they were last year. Texas trying to get back into being I don't know if they were ever a contender, but they were top 10, 15, top 20, a top 4 or 5 seed for quite a few years under Shaka Smart. Barely got into the tournament last year. Can they give themselves more wiggle room? That is my question. That is to be determined. Will Texas continue to streak? Will they get better? I think they're about the same as they are last year, at least as it stands in the SEC, which is a quite difficult conference. Vanderbilt, I think they'll be a little bit better. I like some of the transfers they got in, especially some of the ones with high major experience. I just don't think they're going to be quite good enough in this tough of a conference to make it, but I do think they could pick up some good non-conference wins. They did make the tournament last year. I don't know if I see it this year. Oklahoma, pretty good team last year. Fell a little bit short, and I think they're kind of in that same area. I don't think they're awful, but I don't think they're that good either. They're just kind of middle of the road. And then Georgia, South Carolina, and LSU, I think, are teams that have had good seasons in recent history. I don't see it this year. I think all of those schools are either rebuilding or, lost a lot of players, have a lot of turnover, and I don't see outside of 1 or 2 players on each of those rosters that are going to be good enough consistently to get them where they want to be. I think 14, 15, and 16 here, Georgia, South Carolina, and LSU, I feel pretty confident saying are going to finish towards the bottom of this conference, even if not in that order, and probably won't make the tournament. The third conference in the ranking that I think is actually a little bit of a drop-off from those top 2, the Big Ten. Number 1, I have Purdue, the preseason number 1. They have a balanced roster. They have a deep roster. Matt Painter has done everything as a head coach but win a national title. I think it's more of the same in Indiana with Purdue this year. They have 2, potentially 3 All-American contenders, Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, etc., etc. Purdue should be really good this year. I think it's self-explanatory why I have them 1. Michigan didn't have the year they were wanting or expecting last year. I think they hit the portal very, very well, landing guys like Landenberg, Yaxel Landenberg, and landing Elliot Cadeau. They added to some other good players on the roster, some recruiting, and I think this Michigan team is going to be pretty darn good, compete with Purdue, be at the top of the Big Ten, and should get a nice seed come NCAA tournament time. UCLA in a similar boat as Michigan, except I trust their coach, Mick Cronin, a little bit more experienced guy. UCLA, I think, has more talent than they did last year. Until last year, I feel like under Mick Cronin, they have been pretty consistently near the top of NCAA seeding discussions, and by top I mean a 4 or 5 seed, right? A Sweet 16 bid type team. I think they get back on track, and that is the case this year, starting this year for UCLA. Those are the 3 teams I think are sure things, and then I think we kind of drop off, and there's question marks where these teams could be good, could be bad. Oregon was very up and down last year, had some very impressive wins, but also had some losses that stacked up on them. Oregon, I think, out of all of these teams I have as question marks, I think Oregon finds a way to finish 4th in this conference. I think they get better as the year goes on and they figure it out. Illinois, you can always count on them to being a top 20 to 25 team in the country. They're always good to finish in the top third of the Big Ten. I don't know if I buy them long term, though. I think they sometimes struggle against elite teams, especially in come tournament time. I think this Illinois team will be similar. I think they'll be good, but not great. Give me Illinois to finish 5. Michigan State all the way down in 6th with Tom Izzo, maybe a little bit disrespectful, and I wouldn't be shocked. I think this Michigan State team has some ifs. I wouldn't be shocked if they finish better than this, especially if those question marks can get answered. But with what they have on the roster now and me trying to forecast, I can see them being worse or better, so I put them in the middle. I have them 6. Don't be surprised if they make a run towards the top 3, though. Wisconsin, I think, is going to be the same team they always are. I think they're a very consistent program. And some ways that's good, some ways that's bad. Wisconsin really hasn't been a top 10 team with their program in a long time, but they usually don't really bottom out, and they stay good enough to make NCAA tournaments. This Wisconsin team should be better, but I still don't think they're going to be really, really good, at least this season. Ohio State is another team that I think has a lot of question marks, but there's some things to like on this roster. I think they could end up being higher than 8. But after the season they had last year, I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in them. I'm going to leave them at 8 as it stands right now. But again, I'm putting them with the ifs. So it's very possible in my mind that they have a wide outcome or a wide array. I'm sorry, guys. I'm struggling today. They have a wide range of outcomes. That's the way I was looking to phrase that. Much like a lot of these Big Ten teams, in my opinion. USC, good head coach out there, and Musselman moving out there. I think they're going to be better in year 2 than they were in year 1 under him. I think they're going to get better and better. They have some players out there. I don't know if it's going to come together immediately, though, and because it's not going to come together immediately, I think they might find themselves close to the bubble, on the bubble, desperately needing some wins late in Big Ten play, and to be determined if they'll get there. Indiana starting a rebuild. Again, in a battle of ifs, I really think maybe 5 through 10 in this conference could all flip-flop positions all year, maybe even 4. Just a lot of maybes, a lot of players and coaches moving around that make this so hard to project. I think Indiana made a good hire. I think they're going to be very, very good come 2 or 3 years down the road. Are they going to be good this year? I think they'll be just okay, fighting on the bubble again. Iowa, another school that I think made a solid head coaching hire. I think they'll be better. I don't think they're going to be great. I'll see you on the bubble, probably on the wrong side. Maryland has a new head coach, and honestly, I think Buzz Williams' hot take might be better than Kevin Willard. He's definitely more consistent, but I don't think you should expect too much, even with the transfer portal year 1 from Buzz. But he's very good at building programs. He's done it at multiple schools from seemingly nothing. I think by next season, this Maryland team could be very, very good in the Big Ten. Washington, yeah, maybe they have one or Washington's not good enough to compete at the highest levels and that's really my summary of them. They should beat the teams below them. They should be good enough to handle the business they're supposed to, but I don't think they're quite good enough to compete at the highest levels, leaving me to put them at 13. Nebraska has had some interesting years here. But I don't see them being nearly as competitive as they have been the last couple of years. They should be good enough to avoid the absolute bottom of this conference, but not amazing. I think they finish right around this early to mid-teen section in conference. Northwestern, another school on a rebuilding project. shouldn't expect too much from them. Minnesota was bad last year. They did have a really good player. I think they're more well-rounded, but they lack that elite star player, and I don't see them finishing too high. And then Penn State and Rutgers, not a whole lot on either of their rosters to like. Not a whole lot to make you think they're going to be competitive, especially in this tough of a conference. I think you'll be seeing them at the bottom. My fourth best conference, the ACC. Yes, they maybe only have one school that you definitively know is in the top 10, but I really, really like some of the newer head coach hires. I really, really like what some of these middle of the pack teams are building, so let's get into it. Duke, everybody knows what to expect from Duke. They reloaded after a really good freshman class went to the NBA. They're going to be really, really good this year. They should win this because I don't know if there's any team that's quite as elite as them. Louisville, again, I think they're firmly second. They have a little bit of a gap to Duke, but a little bit of gap behind them, I think. They have a very good head coach in Pat Kelsey. They made the tournament last year for the first time in a long time. They got some very good transfers, had a decent recruiting class. I think this Louisville program could be back, and I think they're going to continue to get better. I just don't know if this is quite the year that they win the conference. UNC may be the widest. I was talking about wide range of outcomes. They might have the widest range of outcomes of anybody in the country. I could see them being a borderline top 10 team by the time it's all said and done. I could see them being a barely top 80 team when it's all said and done. There's quite a few projections, like the mathematical projections agree with that statement as well. I'm going to put them 3 because I think that they are a better, honestly, they might not be as talented as last season, but I think they're better put together. They'll be a better team. They should be able to play defense. They should be able to shoot. 2 things I think they struggled with last year, and they have a 5-star projected NBA lottery talent coming in Caleb Wilson, who should very much stabilize them in multiple ways. NC State, I think, is a team not enough people are talking about. Will Wade was incredible at LSU with how quickly he turned them around and turned them into a good program. He turned McNeese State into a perennial well, I can't say perennial. It was only 2 years, but Will Wade in 2 years, both years, McNeese State was incredible for a mid-major, really even low-major school, even upsetting Clemson in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year. Now he has NC State money and budget. This fan base is dying to be good again because it's very good when it is good. I think they're going to be good right away. Hit on some big names in the transfer portal. He's hitting the recruiting trail now. This NC State team, I think, is going to be in the top 5 of the ACC all year. They have a very favorable schedule. That's another thing I really haven't talked about a lot with these conferences, but with how big some of these conferences are getting, there's a lot of unbalanced scheduling. NC State, for example, only plays Duke and UNC once, and they play both of them at home. Those are going to be 2 of the other better teams, and they don't have to play them on the road. That's going to help them. So I think NC State's going to be good. I think they have a very good schedule. They got a scheduling break, in my opinion. NC State should finish top 5, probably even top 4 of this conference. Virginia is a team I wasn't necessarily sold on coming into the season. But the more I look into it, I think they aced their head coach hire. They have a great head coach hire. This Virginia team, I think, is going to be better. They're going to be playing differently. They have plenty of signs of life on terms of their talent and the players they have available. I think Virginia might be sniffing the tournament for the first time, or I shouldn't say first time in a while, but they should be sniffing the tournament this season after missing it last year. SMU surprised me in their first season in the ACC. I think they got even better. They still have their elite score, and I think SMU's ready to make a run at a top 6 finishing in the top 3rd in the ACC and trying to make the tournament. I see them around the bubble most of the year, but maybe they can get enough done in conference to do it because I don't love their out of conference. Give me SMU to finish 6th. Miami with Jay Lucas, I think a very good hire, a very good recruiter. Miami, I think, is going to rebound from an abysmal year last year in the top of this conference and make a run at the NCAA tournament. Clemson has made the NCAA tournament arguably the most consistent team outside of Duke the last couple of years. Again, great coaching staff at Clemson. It feels disrespectful to put them at 8. They did lose a lot. They got a little bit back in the transfer portal. Based off of recent history, I feel like I should have Clemson in the top 5, and it wouldn't shock me if they end up there. But for now, I'm leaving them at 8 because I just think some of the teams ahead of them might have a little bit more talent, but sometimes coaching wins out. And this 5 to 8 or this 5 to 10 range for me in the ACC is so important because I think those top 4 and probably those top 5 schools do good enough in the non-con and will do enough in the ACC to make the tournament. But the ACC used to be so good and they've really been struggling. This 5 to 10, 6 to 10 range needs to be good for the ACC because there needs to be ample opportunity for quad 1 and even quad 2 games that hasn't been there in the conference. So some of these schools rebuilding with new coaches need to be good. And I'm even putting Clemson in with that group. Wake Forest, I feel like just keeps barely missing the tournament. Steve Forbes is so good in the transfer portal, so good at finding talent and rebuilding rosters. They're always just missing the tournament. I think Wake Forest does it again this year, but I think Wake Forest gets sleeped by quite a few schools with probably bigger budgets than they have. Definitely a larger student population. Syracuse has an interesting roster this year. I just don't think it's quite high-end enough to be competitive. Maybe they finish in the top half of the ACC. Maybe they don't. But I think 2 years from now, they could be really, really good. Eventually, Syracuse in the post-Jim Boeheim era have to figure it out. And if they don't, there will be a new coach in upstate New York. The Syracuse team, I think, is good enough to not be at the bottom, but not good enough to be at the top. They're going to be right in the middle of the pack all year. And I don't know if that's going to be good enough in the ACC this year to make the tournament. Notre Dame is a very fun team under Micah Shrewsbury. I don't think they're going to be at the bottom like they have recently. I think they take a step up this year. I think they have one of the better players in the ACC this season. I just don't think there's enough around him, though, to make a push deeper or higher up the standings. Notre Dame, I have having their best finish they've had in a while, but not quite enough to make the tournament. Not quite enough to be at the top of this ACC like they were nearly a decade ago. Georgia Tech is another one of those new coaches, new teams. They've been upset city, I feel like, the last couple of seasons. They love to upset teams. They play teams close. I think they're going to be hard. I think they're going to be really good at grinding games. They're going to be physical. I don't think they have enough talent on the roster, though, to make a run at the top of this, leaving me to put them in 12. Virginia Tech, I think, rebounds from a rough year last year. I like a couple other pieces, but for Virginia Tech, they're trying to build a program and trying to build the culture, and I think they start to do that successfully this season. Florida State in a similar boat, brand new head coach. Lost, they really don't have that much on the roster, in my opinion. I think they're going to be lacking against the top teams in this conference. I think Florida State will make the ACC tournament. I don't think they do much once they get there. Pitt is a team that I feel like the last couple of seasons has been top 5 or 6 perennially. But I think they lost a lot of talent and didn't replace it, and this could be Jeff Capel's final year. He has been above average, but he has been good enough to consistently make the tournament. Again, I don't think they replaced all of the talent that they lost. I think it's going to severely hinder Pitt, and I think a lot of teams that have been behind them are taking a big step up, and I think Pitt barely squeaks into the ACC tournament this year. And then Stanford, Cal, and Boston College, I think I don't expect any of them to be very good this year at basketball. A lot of them, pretty much all 3 of them, their best player is gone, and they didn't do much to recover. I don't expect any of them to be good this season at all. And they should be relatively free wins. Obviously, everybody's going to get a couple conference wins, or they should, but I don't see any of those 3 schools getting wins against people that aren't each other. And my 5th power conference team in my Power 5, the Big East. Yes, UConn and St. John's are both top 10, probably maybe even both top 5 schools to start the year, but they don't have much behind that, which is why I moved the ACC above them. UConn won 2 straight national titles and then lost to the national champion last year. Danny Hurley has this team moving. It's a very good team under Danny Hurley for understandable reasons. I think they return to the top. Very deep team, very balanced team. St. John's and Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino is back. St. John's is back. And I think they're only going to continue that upward swing. I think it's a two-man race in the Big East this year, and UConn and St. John's are going to be fighting all season to win this conference. Creighton has consistently been a tournament team, consistently been near the top of this conference. I see no different this year. I think they make the tournament. I think that they're in the top 4 of this conference. I don't think they're quite as good as they have been the last couple of years. But maybe that coaching staff knows more than I do because they're at practice, and I think they're very good at recruiting for a school from Nebraska playing in the Big East with maybe not the same budget as some of these other schools. I think Kevin Willard was a good hire for Villanova. I think he'll stabilize them. They should be perennial tournament contenders. Are they going to be national title contenders? I don't quite know about that, but I think it'll help stabilize Villanova. I think they got enough in the transfer portal where Villanova should be competitive in the Big East and competitive for a national tournament bid. Georgetown, I think, takes a step up. I like some of the pieces they got. I think Ed Cooley knows how to win in the Big East. He did it at Providence all those years, and I think Georgetown, if they're not back this year, I think next year maybe they'll officially be back. I think they're going to be a lot better than people think they're going to be this year. I think Georgetown makes a run at, while I don't have them in the top half, I think they make a run at the top half and maybe can even find themselves on the bubble if they can do enough work in the non-conference. Providence, I think, has fallen a little bit. I don't think there's enough on their roster. They're a school that usually is around the bubble, usually can find their way into the tournament. I don't know if I see it this year, but I don't think they're going to be horrible either. I think they're going to find their way to enough wins to be not bad, but not good enough. Xavier trying to rebuild first year with a new head coach. It is a head coach that has had success at his previous stop in Pitino, not the same one at St. John's, his son. They've already started some bantering. I don't think Xavier is going to be good enough to compete this year. Give it time, and I think they will be okay in Ohio. Butler, I miss the days of Butler being a perennial contender. I think they have passed. Butler's not going to be the worst team in this conference, but I don't think they're going to be good either. DePaul, it's funny. I think they actually should be hopeful about this year, even though I have them 10. They finally won a conference game last year. They looked a little bit better last year. I think they're going to be a little bit better this year, but a little bit better for DePaul isn't that much. I still don't think they're finishing very good. And maybe my hot take for the year, Shaheen Holloway might be out at Seton Hall. Seton Hall not going to finish with too many conference wins. I don't see them doing on the non-conference. Shaheen Holloway was viewed as a big hire after everything he did with St. Peter's in the NCAA tournament. Hasn't worked out at Seton Hall yet. Really has struggled. I don't think Seton Hall has many guys on the roster that obviously say we're going to be a success this year. And I think that Seton Hall probably struggles most of the year, going to last place in the Big East. Here is my best of the rest segment. Those are the Power 5 schools, the best 5 conferences in the country. I went in-depth analysis for them. I'm not going to go too in-depth for the rest of these conferences, but I do want to mention the best of the rest of these mid-majors. Obviously, Gonzaga has been the best, and they have for a while. I think it's going to be no different this year. I expect them to be very good again out in the West Coast Conference. Their last season out there before going to the Pac-12 and kind of recreating that conference. Give me Gonzaga to be good again this year. San Diego State lost in the first 4 of the NCAA tournament last year, got bludgeoned by North Carolina. I think San Diego State will be back this year. I think they're going to be good this year. They're going to be potentially even great. San Diego State out in the Mountain West starting the season is my number 2 best of the rest school. Boise State, the last couple of seasons have been consistent. I like the coaching staff they got there. I think they're going to continue to be good, continue to be a tournament level team. Give me Boise State in the Mountain West. VCU went to the tournament last year. VCU is a fun program. They now, with multiple coaches, have seemed like they are perennial A10 contenders. I think that says a lot about Richmond, a lot about VCU as a program. I think they are the favorites to win the A10. Sorry, not the ASUN, completely different conference. The A10 again this year. And I think they're going to be one of the best mid-major schools in the country. Memphis in the American Conference. The American Conference is interesting. It's a mid-major conference, but they have a lot of big schools in the American Athletic Conference. They did get rated by the Big 12 recently, but I think Memphis won it last year. I think Memphis is the favorite this year, despite losing their 2 best players in PJ Haggerty and Dane Danger. but I think that they have plenty enough on the roster to be competitive still. St. Mary's, the only other school I feel like in the West Coast Conference that can be regularly competitive with Gonzaga. I don't think they're as good as them this year. I think that it's going to be what the standard is in that conference. Gonzaga 1, St. Mary's 2. University of South Florida lost a key piece in the transfer portal. I still think they're going to be pretty darn good. And the American, they are going to be, I think, the only school that can push Memphis out there. USF deserves to be on the best of the rest power rankings to start the year. St. Louis, I talked about how good VCU is and how VCU has had many years atop the A10. And in the A10, you also have Dayton, you have Davidson, all that have some good history and have had some crazy things happen. And then you have St. Louis amongst a whole host of other schools, yes. But then you have St. Louis, who I think is the biggest contender to taking away VCU's title this year. They're going to have one of America's favorite players this year in Robbie Avila. I think St. Louis, very, very real potential. They end up in the NCAA tournament this year. I think it's going to be really difficult for these mid-major schools to get a ton of bids. Maybe St. Louis can, maybe some of them can. I don't know, but I want to see St. Louis in the tournament this year, personally. Colorado State almost had a super memorable run to the Sweet 16, losing to Maryland at the very end of the game last season. They weren't supposed to make the tournament. They won the conference tournament and then went. Colorado State lost some big pieces. I still think they're going to be just fine and be A-okay in the Mountain West. They've come in at number 9 in the best of the rest rankings. And then rounding out another Mountain West school, giving the Mountain West 5 schools on this list, Utah State, tournament caliber team this year. Can they fulfill that expectation? That is the only question. Utah State to be good this year, rounding out the team rankings. And if the Mountain West Conference has 4 of the 10 schools, you can bet when I'm looking at the best of the rest conferences, the Mountain West is number 1. They're always good. The last couple of years, they've put multiple teams in the tournament, which is a hard thing to do a lot of years in a row. And not just 2, but 3, 4 schools in the tournament. Mountain West is the best of the rest. Number 1 position. Number 2, the West Coast Conference. Honestly, it's carried by Gonzaga and St. Mary's, but Gonzaga's usually pretty darn good. St. Mary's flirts around in the top 25. Don't have much depth after that. Every once in a while, San Francisco will be good. You'll have one of those schools pop up, but consistently it's Gonzaga and St. Mary's. They carry the West Coast Conference. The WCC, this might be their last year on this list, but they're at least going to start it at number 2. The American, I have just edging the Atlantic 10. I think the American is deeper than the Atlantic 10. I think they both have their 2 top teams in those conferences are close. But again, I think the American is just a little bit deeper because I think they have some bigger schools with a little bit higher budgets and just all around a little bit better. Give me the AAC at 3 and the A10 at 4. And then coming in at 5, right? Those top 4 conferences all have the top 10 rankings. So who's the 5th conference? The Missouri Valley Conference, I think, is sneakily one of the better ones. They always seem to play competitive games in the tournament. They produce a lot of good teams. They're one of the most fun mid-major schools to watch, or mid-major conferences to watch, in my opinion. The Missouri Valley Conference coming in at 5th in my best of the rest conferences rankings. And now, if you watched last year, you remember I went rapid fire. I did the 5 power conferences. Well, there's a lot of other conferences at the NCAA Division I basketball level. And if you remember last year, I quickly went and tried to do it in 30 seconds, named the conference championship for everyone. It's back this year. I'm going to do it again. No ifs, ands, buts, or questions. I'm not going to explain it. I'm going to say maybe one sentence, one word, let you know what team I think is winning all of the rest of the conferences. So without further ado, here I go. American, Memphis. America East, Vermont. They're the dominant force in that conference for a reason. A-Sun winner, Eastern Kentucky, Kentucky basketball on top. Atlantic 10, VCU, their reign isn't over. Big Sky, the Montana Grizzlies, taking back over the title in that conference. Big South, High Point, a lot of money, really nice campus. Big West, UC Irvine finding their way to get back on top in the Battle of California. CAA, Towson, Baltimore, underrated basketball city. Towson from Baltimore back on top. Conference USA, religious school, Liberty, big religious school. They find a way to win this conference. Horizon, give me Oakland, not from California, but from Michigan. Ivy League, Yale, always an upset threat in the tournament. Time to give them respect. Siena, constant contender in the conference, no different this year. MAC winner, the Akron Zips are going to be zipping their way to the tournament. MEAC, Howard Bison, right outside of Washington, D.C., another great basketball area. They find a way to get it done this year. Mountain West, San Diego State, revenge. Missouri Valley, Bradley, putting themselves back on top. Northeast Conference, Long Island University. Ohio Valley, give me Arkansas, Little Rock. Patriot League, nothing more patriotic than a military academy. Navy making their first tournament of the 21st century. Southern, Furman, always at the top, near the top, at the top this year. Southland winner, McNeese State and Will Wade is going from McNeese State. Give me Stephen F. Austin. Summit League, St. Thomas, first year of eligibility. Love the story. Sun Belt, a.k.a. Fun Belt, a.k.a. James Madison owns this conference belt. SWAC, let's go down to Daytona where it gets crazy. Bethune-Cookman's going to go crazy and make the tournament. Western Athletic winner. The bad man is gone in Grand Canyon. Abilene Christian to take over for them. West Coast Conference, give me Gonzaga. What a shock. And there you have it. We're to the next page. I hope that not only was that informative, remember, I promise you I researched every single one of these conferences, even learned that there's 2 or 3 more schools in Division I than I thought. I hope that was also a logo quiz for those of you who may not know all of the college's logos. I hope there was a couple logos there that you didn't know. And to wrap up this episode, I'm going to do my start of season power rankings and award races. First, I'm going to take you through my top 30 teams in the NCAA and maybe even give you where I think the teams stand. For these top 9, no, I'll say for these top 12 teams, I think the national title's coming from one of them. I think the real national title contenders are the top 4 here in Florida, Houston, and UConn. Or Florida, Houston, UConn, and Purdue. I forgot Purdue. But I really think anybody all the way back to number 12 on this list can win it. And I think the rest of them should fill out really the rest of the top seeds. I mean, 30 schools, that this is all the way to seed line number 8, right? So I think all of these schools should be a top half seed in the NCAA tournament. I expect to see all of them there. So let's get into it. Number 1, Florida. They're the defending national champs. No reason not to have them there. Number 2, Houston. Still have a lot of good players. Made it to the national champ game last year. I expect them to be that level this year. UConn, I have at number 3. I expect to see them return to the top of the sport, at least near the top. Purdue at 4. They don't have Zach Edey anymore, but they still have a lot of good players. Maybe the most balanced team in the country. Duke reloading after losing a lot of their good players. They still have some veteran leadership. Duke rounding out the top 5. St. John's and Texas Tech, maybe 2 schools recently you haven't thought a lot about. They're going to be good this year, believe me. BYU at 8, supporting who's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick. A lot of shooting, a lot of offense. Can they get enough stops? Kentucky at number 9 with Mark Pope in his second year. I think they should be hovering around the top 10 all year, constantly competitive with everybody. Their in-state rivals, Louisville, I have starting the year at 10 with head coach Pat Kelsey. Again, I really think this Louisville program might be back. They should be pretty darn good this year. Michigan, I wanted to put them in the top 10, but I really truthfully just like some of these schools in front of them a little bit better. I still think Michigan has a really high ceiling. It's just going to be how quickly can they realize it. Kansas at 12, I think they have a much more solid and Kansas-like year this year than they have in years past. A top 15 team in the country easily. I don't care what the AP poll says. Alabama, maybe not quite as good as they were last year. Still think they're going to be a good program. I don't think they're ever really going to fall off a cliff under Nate Oates. Alabama at 13, Arizona at 14. They might have a high variance with their tough non-conference. I think they could win. They're going to win some and lose some, and that's going to move them up and down in the rankings. But I think they're going to average out right in the middle of the top 25 at 14. Auburn at 15. That's a little bit risky. I can see a world where without some of that senior leadership and without Bruce Pearl, they fall down a little bit, but they still have plenty of talent on the roster. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt at 15. And now the second half of the top 30, another SEC school, Arkansas. You know Calipari is good. I'm going to start them at 16, and there's plenty of room for them to go up. Another SEC school, 3 in a row, 4 of the last 5, with Tennessee. Tennessee I have at 17, easily a top 20 program coming into the year. I think Illinois is always in this 15 to 20 range. I'm going to give them 18 to start the season. UCLA, I think, will be better and might finish higher than 19, but they weren't great to end the year last year. Mick Cronin needs to prove to me he can consistently be at the top this season, so I'm going to give UCLA 19. Despite what I said about Michigan State earlier, I'm going to start them at 20. Tom Izzo's good. There's enough talent on this roster to compete. Maybe not the ending they always wanted last year in some ways, but I still think they deserve to start the year top 20. Wouldn't be shocked if they drop down a little bit. Iowa State has a gripe with me, and I would understand it. I'm giving them 21. A lot of other places have them higher. They are bringing a lot back. And I would not be shocked at all to see them make a push towards the top 10 once all of these schools start beating up on each other. Gonzaga at 22. I don't think they're the same dominant Gonzaga perennial top 5 to 10 school. Sorry about that. I don't think they're the same top to 5 to 10 school that they were. I still think they're a reliable top 20 school, and I still think they should be good this season. UNC at 23. They could fall out of this instantly. They could go up. Again, they're as high variance gets. I think 23 is a fair place to start them. San Diego State, I think, should find their way back towards the top of the Mountain West, back towards the NCAA tournament. Give me San Diego State at number 24. A pair of ACC schools trying to rebuild the program and be back to perennial contenders like they once were, Virginia and NC State at 25 and 26. I have Iowa trying to return back towards the top, and I have them in the top 30 at 27. Creighton, maybe they move up, maybe they don't. I don't think they're going to be as dominant, and I don't think they have the same roster they normally do. Creighton at 28. Baylor and Scott Drew could quickly rise up this list with their non-conference and who they have to play in conference, but for now, I don't think it's fair to start them in the top 20. Give me Baylor at 29, and Oregon, don't have a lot to say about them right now. I think they're just an all-around solid team. I'll put them at 30. So there you have my preseason top 30 power rankings. Let me know in the comments if you like them. Let me know in the comments why I'm stupid and wrong and why your team should either be on it or be higher, because I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that think that. Now I'm going to go through all of my power rankings. I say award races. There's really only one that I list. For Defensive Player of the Year, I think Joseph Tugler for Houston is the heavy favorite for the award. You know, Houston plays that tough, gritty style. They play defense there, and because of that, I think Joseph Tugler is not a shoo-in, but the heavy favorite at the beginning of the season for that award. Freshman of the Year, I think, is going to be an incredible race this year. I think Cooper Flagg ran away with it last year. I think Freshman of the Year between AJ Dibansa and Darren Peterson, who are in the same conference, I mind you, one at BYU, one at Kansas. I think the race between those two should be incredible. I think Dibansa will edge him out. Not by much, but I think Dibansa will get it. Boozer is kind of a distant third in that race for me as well. Bob Cousy, the award for the best point guard in the country. I think Braden Smith from Purdue takes it. I talk about how they're a good team, a really good team, potential to be a national title contender. And it starts with Braden Smith for me. I mentioned this guy's name earlier. Jerry West, best shooting guard. Otega Oweh for Kentucky. I think he returns, is even better this season, and does a lot of scoring for a Kentucky team that should be a top 10 team this year. Best small forward. Let's go down to Florida in the defending national championships. I think Thomas Hall takes a step up for them. I think he has to for them to be good, to be at the level they think they should be at. I think Florida fans might think that they should be at this level every year. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I think this year it can be, and I think they're going to be led by a very good Thomas Hall. Karl Malone Award for the best power forward. JT Toppin at Texas Tech. He is going to be in the running for National Player of the Year. He's going to be in the running for Big 12 Player of the Year. JT Toppin, I think, should win best power forward, barring any injuries. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for best center. I think this is the most wide open award. I think this is the award that there's the least heavy favorite, if that makes sense, but I have it going to Zuby Ejiofor, just because I think he can be an elite presence and add enough scoring where he could be averaging a double-double with great defense in a good conference. Let's get to my All-American teams. Third team All-American, Tahad Pettiford, Auburn, Donovan Dent, UCLA, Nate Ahmet, the freshman from Tennessee, Trey Kaufman-Renn, the power forward from Purdue, and Thomas Hall from Florida. Second team All-American, Darren Peterson, freshman from Kansas, the big freshman from Kansas. PJ Haggerty, a guy I mentioned going from Memphis to Kansas State. I think PJ Haggerty is going to have a much better season than maybe some people think. I have him second team All-American. Cameron Boozer, another freshman at Duke. Davion Williams, I expect very big things out of him this year. And Alex Condon, also at Florida, the defending national champs. First team All-American, JT Toppin, Braden Smith, Yaxel Lendenberg, AJ Dibansa, and Otega Owe. Those are my picks for first team All-American. And as you can expect, the National Player of the Year should probably be on your first team All-American list. I have it a two-way race by the end between JT Toppin and Braden Smith, and I have JT Toppin narrowly edging out Braden Smith in a battle between two very well-known powerhouses of Texas Tech and Purdue. Those are my award races, my award predictions, and my power rankings. And this is the end of the episode. I love college basketball season. I'm probably going to do another Feast Week episode that's just about Feast Week when it gets closer to Thanksgiving week. I hope you all love college basketball as much as I do. I don't know who my favorite... You know what? I wasn't going to do this in this episode, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. After going through all of that, I'm going to pick Houston as my national title favorite. My champion this year, I'm going to pick Houston, and Kelvin Sampson finally getting it done to end the episode. Everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives. Put in the comments below what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong. Put your award winners, and most importantly, put your national championship pick in the comments below. Please, please, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's a crazy world. Please stay safe out there. Some great sports action this weekend, and this week in general, including the start of college basketball season. What a wonderful time of year. Everybody stay safe. Peace out.